Morning Lions fans, and welcome to the Vero Coaches Wrap, the final one for season 2016. Again, I'd just like to thank Vero for their sponsorship of this segment. Great sponsors, and I hope you got a bit out of it. But we thought we'd cap off the last one, just going over some positives for the year, but also just some rover improvements that we need to work on over the pre-season and heading into season 2017. What went well? Well, we had 9 guys who debuted for the footy club this year. You can see there the names of those guys and also the number of games they played. Obviously Keezy played 16 games, which was the second most. Shaq played 17. We had Hippie on 10. And also the Beast on 11 games this year. So we got some good games and some good young kids who will be the future of our footy club. And also, it was good to see the other guys get some taste of AFL footy as well. So that was probably one of the things that was pleasing for the footy club. Mind you probably don't want to see 9 or 10 guys debut every year. I think most of the top 8 sides have about 5 or 6. So whilst it was good for all these guys to get a taste of it, you really want them to earn it as well. So that was one of the pleasing aspects. A couple of other things stats-wise I want to go over. We're actually AFL second in scoring when we went inside 50 at 49.1%. So on the left-hand side there, you can see the sides that were their scoring percentage. So Adelaide were number 1 at 52%. So what that means is for every, we'll call it 10. So for 10 times that Adelaide went inside 50, they scored 5 times basically. We scored 4.95 times as well. So AFL second. And the list goes right down. So you can see 5 of the top 8 sides finished in the top 8 there. North Melbourne and Sydney just outside, and Western Bulldogs were the anomaly who finished about 16th. The downside to this is that we didn't go inside 50 enough. I think we were ranked 17th for the amount of inside 50s we went in. So one of the things we need to work on over the pre-season is obviously how we can get more inside 50s whilst trying to retain the 50%. So if we can do that, we'll increase our scoring next year. So that was one of the positives of this year, stats-wise. And this is just an example. So you see here, the ball's in dispute. And what we mean by this is that as we get the ball going inside the 50-metre arc, which you'll see in a sec there, for every 2 times that we went inside 50, we scored one of those times. So ball goes inside 50, cuts, marks it, and he gets a shot on goal. So that's what we mean by per entry inside 50. Another part of our success this year was our stoppage scores. We're actually ranked 9th. I think in one of the second or third last episodes I said we were aiming for top 8. We didn't actually get there. We finished 9th. But you can see 7 of the 8 sides finished in the top 8. Again, the only one was Hawthorn, who based their game around turnover. So that's obviously a successful target for most of the sides. So from that perspective, it was a real positive for us. On the flip side, we got scored against too easily from stoppage. But 9th in the AFL is a good result. And again, here's an indication of what I mean by a score from stoppage. So a boundary throw in, ball up. We win first possession from the stoppage. We got our ball use going, our run and spread from the stoppage, and Tinker finishes off by hitting the post. So that's what we call a score from stoppage. So every time there's a ball up, a throw in, or a centre bounce. So this one here is a centre bounce. We win the centre bounce clearance through Robbo. The opposition don't get their hands on the footy at all. We drive it inside 50, and Squizzy Taylor finishes off by kicking one of his goals for this game. So that's what we mean by a score from stoppages. So we've ranked 9th, and moving forward, we obviously want to get into the top 8 next year, which will be a focus for us. Now to look over some of the things that didn't go too well, and unfortunately when you have a season of 3 wins and 19 losses, there's quite a bit that doesn't go too well. So unfortunately I haven't got an hour to go over this in your segment, so we'll just touch on a couple of areas which are of a real concern for us and what we need to really concentrate over the pre-season in training and educating our players on. The first one is our defence. We averaged 130 points against per game, which is obviously 18th in the competition. 18 times the opposition scored 100 plus points against us. And we had 2,872 points kicked against us. Essendon was 17th with 2,300, so we're 500 off 17th. Not great, and obviously an area of improvement, as you guys would have witnessed when you watched our games, and obviously the media talking about that we really need to do a lot of work on. And there's just a couple of questions surrounding this as well, which I'll answer straight away. The first one was, if you could turn back time, what would you do? And I think we'd all agree, especially Lepper, and we've spoken about this, is we probably have more of an emphasis on our defensive training over pre-season. We obviously had an emphasis of kicking 100 points this year, which we're able to do on, I think, 6 occasions. But what we probably didn't do as well was defend as well as we should have. So if we had our time again, we probably would have done more defensive work, and probably more decision-making drills with our players, which will obviously be an area of focus over the pre-season. And the second question was there a common theme or comment to the players during the exit interviews that we did last week? One of the things we spoke to them about was obviously our defence and what we were pouring and the fact that we were 18th. And one of the things we spoke to every player about is that the ability for them to buy into defence. Unfortunately, football is a game about kicking goals. We like to kick goals, and our players like offence. They like contest, all that sort of stuff. But the hardest thing to buy into is defence. A stat which we use quite a bit is that each player has the ball in their hands for only basically 2 minutes of a game. So if a game goes for 100 minutes, one player's only got the ball in their hands for 2 minutes. So what are they doing for the other 98 minutes of the game? And one of the things they need to be concentrating on is their defensive aspect of it, which is their tackling, their pressure, their ability to zone up properly, their ability to chase out, their ability to run defensively. So stuff when you haven't got the football. So that was probably the biggest message we gave to every single player when they left this year, that when they come back, this is going to be the big focus for us, our defensive work, and they need to buy into it. They need to own it. As coaches, we need to drive it. And hopefully this is one of the areas that will help us get up the ladder, not only next year, but in the next 2, 3, 4 years, and make us one of the best sides in the competition. We need to work on our defence, and our players need to buy into it. The other one was our skill efficiency, which was 73%. So that's our ability to kick the football, our ability to handball the football, and such things as drop marks, ability to miss ground balls, which we should be able to gather up quite easily. It was 73%, which is 18th in the AFL. To give you an idea of number one, obviously Hawthorn and Sydney are the top two, and they're up about the 83% mark. And you might say that's only 10% difference, but when you've got so many moments in a game that relate to your ability with your skill level or your decision making, that adds up to quite a few a game. So that's an area we really need to hone in over the pre-season as well. And I'll give you a couple of examples of this after I taught you about a question that was asked. One question was asked, am I staying? Well, at this point I'm staying, but we haven't got a new coach yet. So once the coach is appointed, hopefully he wants me to stay on. Yes, I'd love to stay on. And what are the coaches currently working on or doing? We had a meeting this morning for the coaches that are still here, basically surrounding what sort of drills we can do in terms of our skill efficiency and also our decision making. Again, unfortunately, we haven't got a senior coach yet. So whilst that might take a few weeks, we've got to start the ball rolling. So we'll come up with some drills to focus on for the players when they come back, which will improve their skill efficiency, but also improve their decision-making under fatigue. So that'll be a big focus for us moving forward. So very good question. And this is just an example of what I'm talking about with our skill efficiency and decision-making. So the ball goes into our forward line. Right here it stops. We've got a 3v3. Young Eric Hipwood, played 8 games to this stage, makes a decision to bring the ball and tap it back into the corridor. We need to educate young Eric that that's not the right option or the right decision for him. He probably either needed to grab it and feed it off to Squizzy Taylor, who runs in and kicks a goal, or he taps it towards the boundary, which gives us an opportunity to defend the ball. But right there, he's made a decision. He's hit the ball back towards the corridor. As you can see around there, Adelaide have got more numbers. So Adelaide have potentially got more advantage here in winning the football. So the first part of this is over the pre-season and moving forward. We've got to educate Eric about what the right and wrong decisions are in this case scenario. As this plays out, you'll see Adelaide win the footy, and we just don't defend well. We don't chase, we don't tackle, we don't harass. Our defenders are too far off the forwards, our midfielders are too far off their midfielders, and the better sides don't allow this to happen. They don't allow forwards to hit up like Adelaide do here. They don't allow Adelaide to win this contest right now. Defender laid off the Adelaide forward. So there's about 6, 7, 8 examples here of what we were poor at defensively. So we'll use these edits with our players and construct some drills over the pre-season, which will enable our players to become better in this area. Another example here, we win the football. Rule number 1, win the football, which we were quite good at this year. Next part of it is the decision making. Maisie's got the footy right here. You can see in board, you see one of our players with his arms in the air. The good sides will hit that kick. They'll hit that kick and they'll start their offence from that. We make a decision right here to kick the ball long, which makes it a 50-50 contest. So again, we'll talk to Maisie about the decision here, and we'll put our players into these positions over pre-season to enable them to get better. Maisie makes a decision to kick it long to a contest. Cuts, misses a ball here. Skill error. Goes through his feet. We win the footy back. Dorso wins the football. 1v0. Fumbles. Bad handball. Misses his player. Port Adelaide win the football. We can't defend this. So there's 2 examples of a decision making, 3 examples of a skill error, and then our inability to defend the turnover. And that's what killed us this year. So we really, really need to hone in on that over pre-season and get our players better at this. So they're probably the main things we looked at. And the most important part of the segment to finish off is a few questions. What type of player do we think you should get a pick to? Well, our recruiters do a great job. They'll pick the best player available, whether that's a midfielder, a key forward, a key defender. I think in this year's draft there's a fair few midfielders, so I think we'll get a pretty good midfielder at pick 2, but we'll get the best player available. Why do coaches position Daniel Rich in defence? Rightio. Okay, I'll talk through this one because I got asked me quite a bit this year. We actually played Richie quite a lot through the midfield this year, probably at about 80%. The thing for Daniel that he needs to get better at is ability to break a tag. So when Daniel was being tagged, he didn't have the impact on the games that we needed him to. One way to beat a tag, unfortunately, is you've got to send them through to the back line. It's very hard to tag a person from half back. And the other part about that is Richie was able to provide some good offence from half back, and a lot of the good sides have their best ball users across half back because the game is about turnovers, especially back half turnovers, and if we can get the ball in our best players' hands, it helps us moving forward. So 2 things, Richie's ability to win the footy at half back was very good for us. The second part was he probably didn't handle a tag as well as he should have. We need to educate him on that a lot better. The exit interviews with no senior coach. Gary O'Donnell's the head of our development, so he basically had all the templates ready for the player interviews. I sat basically in with those with the line coaches. So there was basically the line coach, so Blackie for the midfield, Mitch Hahn for the defenders, Ben Hudson for the forward line, myself and Gary O'Donnell, and we basically went through all the exit interviews for the players. In terms of the delistings that just happened, that was our footy manager, Matty Francis, who was there in conjunction with our welfare manager, Craig Lambert, who did the actual delistings. So hopefully that's answered your question. A couple more questions to go. How come Ben Keys never got to have a run in the midfield? Again, we just needed Ben to basically learn about the game. We thought him playing as a forward gave him that opportunity to learn about defence, but also more so about the game of footy itself. We actually played him through the midfield on a wing, or as what we called a 5th man for probably the last 4 or 5 games, and we gave him a few opportunities through there, but he'll train with our midfield group over the pre-season, and 100% you'll see more through the midfield next year after playing 16 games this year. And the last question, what do the current coaches need in extra resources to help make their jobs more efficient? Look, we're obviously going to have a few new coaches come in. I think one thing that the club has decided to do is to put more emphasis on our development. So there'll be more coaches in our development area, more so than our AFL area, which will help our younger players develop a lot better. In terms of resources, I think we've got fantastic facilities down there in terms of what we need. We've got the Gabba, which we use a lot. We've got very, very good coaches. So we could always do with more money, absolutely. But our coaches are very good. What we've got there to work with are very good. We just need to keep spending more time with our younger players and getting them better. Hope that's answered the questions today. And I just want to talk about next year as we go into 2017. And there is a bit of hope. You see players here, which I've mentioned. These guys hardly played any football for us this year, but they're an integral part of our side. You can see there, for an example, Closey was able to kick 4 goals in the 3rd or 2nd last game of the year. He's only played 2 or 3 games of AFL footy since his knee op. And the rest of those guys have only played 6, 7, 8, 9 games. And they're probably all part of our best 18 side. And we need everyone playing to be at our best at this stage in our future. And then we've got our younger players who showed a lot for us this year. And they'll be better for a year of playing football, but also they'll be better for another pre-season. And the last one is Beamsy. And he adds 5 goals to us straight away. He played 6 quarters of footy this year. And he's just so important to this footy side. So a fit Dane Beams for us next year will be enormous. He'll be like another recruit for us. The other part is we get a new senior coach. That'll be announced hopefully in the next month. we get a new general manager of footy operations, which will hopefully be announced in the next few weeks as well. We've got pick 2, we've got pick 20, and we've got pick 24. So we'll get some very, very good young exciting talent through the door at the end of November. So there'll be a lot of improvement for this footy club next year with all those players I mentioned there. New coach, new general manager of footy ops, which will help the club, and 3 new kids. So there's a lot to look forward to. I know it's been a very ordinary season for everyone concerned, but there is hope. So please hang on to that hope. And the last thing, just a big thank you. This production each week obviously takes an enormous amount of work to go into it. Murray Davis obviously co-hosted this with myself, so thanks to Muzz, thanks to you guys who help us throughout the year. I get up here and talk for 5 minutes, but these guys do all the work, and it's a good little segment, and they do a hell of a lot of work putting it together. So big thanks to those guys. Big thanks to Vero for sponsoring the segment. Again, a great sponsor. They've obviously come on board for another couple of years, and we can't be thankful enough for them. And also to you guys that watch this each week, our members, our supporters, our viewers. I know it's been a tough year, as I said. Hopefully we provide a little bit of information and a bit of insight as to what goes on. Enormous amount of respect for you guys, and thanks for all the questions. Thanks for all the advice you give us coaches throughout the year. That's all taken on board, and hopefully onward and upward for 2017 and beyond.